Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to this week's edition of Imperial as One's Belonging series, where we explore the lived experiences of individuals from the Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities. Individuals who have come and they have taken the time to give us an insight into what it is that has helped them to find their sense of identity and belonging. And this week we have Professor Peter Cheung, and he is a professor of digital systems at the Dyson School of Design Engineering and the Faculty of Medicine at Imperial.
No, Faculty of Engineering.
Sorry, engineering, sorry. I'm Faculty of Medicine, you're Faculty of Engineering. Faculty of Engineering at Imperial College. So, Peter, I just want to say a big thank you for joining us. And I'm going to ask my first question, which is, can you tell me what it is or what it was that helped you to develop your sense of identity and your sense of belonging as you were growing up?
Well, firstly, I have to explain that I've been associated with Imperial College since 1970. And except for a gap of 3 years between 73 and 76, I've been either a student since 1970 to now. Yes, I've been either a student or an employee of Imperial College. So, in some sense, having spent such a long time in one institution, this developing a sense of belongings is like growing up in a family. It's just happened.
Mm,
It's just such a long time. I only know of two employers, and one of them was 3 years. The other one is, including this year, I've been employee of Imperial College for 46 years, coming up to.
40.
So that is how I developed my sense of belonging because I've spent so much time here.
So I hear, I know you've got that belonging from the perspective of Imperial, yeah, and we're going to explore that. But before coming to Imperial College, the things which helped to formulate the young Peter, the value systems which the young Peter developed, which made you think I would like to go and attend a college like Imperial.
Well, that was from reputation. It's not a sense of belonging, but you can't develop sense of belonging without being belonging there.
Yeah.
So I think most people actually would try to go for the best place they know about.
Hmm.
And Imperial has a reputation from a long time ago as
Hmm.
the top place to do engineering in UK.
Yeah.
And many people wrongly think the following: kids in their teens
Hmm.
choose which is the best institution to go to. So they always say, oh, it's Imperial competitive with MIT, Stanford, and so on. That is a wrong perspective. For
Hmm.
most people, if they are born and bred in UK, their choice is UK university.
Hmm.
For most overseas student like myself, the choice at that stage is, firstly, our parents would think which country we would send the children, and then which is the best institution.
Hmm.
So our competition is all within UK. And therefore, I chose Imperial to apply to because Imperial has the best reputation on engineering. And it was proved to be correct. My undergraduate education at Imperial Electrical Engineering was amazing.
Yeah.
It's just unlike any other places.
Hmm. So I really that point which you made with regards to two choices, either kind of like if it's in the UK, the majority will come to the UK. But from an overseas perspective, it was kind of like which country and which is the best institution within that country. I find
Yes.
that very interesting. Um, so UK. what was that transition like for you then, moving from your home country to the UK? Were you excited? What was it that
Well, I was 15-year-old
yeah,
at the time, went to boarding school,
yeah.
and I had no choice. The parents just sent me. I I I can't remember whether I was excited. I think I was quite fearful, actually, if you're 15 being sent
Yeah.
away from home. But I was very quickly adapted
Hmm.
to living in the UK. I've got a twin brother, so I didn't come on my own,
Hmm.
and only spent 2 years at boarding school in Imperial. Now, coming to Imperial was what an experience. Imperial at the time, the class was quite small, about 85 students. There were very few Chinese, there were a handful. And my mother tongue wasn't English, so I was still learning to try to speak fluently.
Hmm.
But electrical engineering has always been quite special. And our degree program actually taught me not just technical things. I have to thank our department in electrical engineering. And by the way, when you
Hmm.
introduced me as a professor in Dyson School. I'm still a professor in electrical engineering. I'm
Yeah.
sharing my time between the two
Right. Okay.
departments.
Yeah.
And this office is in electrical engineering, not in Dyson School.
Right.
Anyway, back to electrical engineering. Electrical engineering at the time had the most enlightened curriculum. There was a brilliant young lecturer called Sinclair Goodlett,
Hmm.
who previously ran the humanity program at Imperial for many decades.
Hmm.
He was one of the lecturer, and through him, all students, local or overseas students, learn to communicate. That
Right.
was one of the key training I received.
Hmm.
Back in 1970
Hmm.
to 73,
Hmm.
long before this is a thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Nowadays, it's very common, but in those days, it's very rare.
Yeah. So, uh, bearing in mind, because you always had your sights set on Imperial and you got into Imperial, was that getting into Imperial as easy as, you do your application, everything goes straightforward, you got in, etc. Was there anything else which happened with regards to?
Not at all.
Mhm.
Not at all. Imperial, in fact, when I applied, did not even interview me, and my twin brother rejected.
Mhm.
And I subsequently discovered why. We were very ambitious coming from Hong Kong, where
Mhm.
my home, where I was born.
Mhm.
Um, I discovered the O level. In those days, there's not GCSE, but O level. And A level syllabus and standard in UK was lower than Hong Kong. And therefore, uh, my twin brother and I actually skipped 2 years. We finished O level, and the following year, we request our school to let us sit for A levels.
Right.
So
Okay.
we took a year for A levels. And because of that, Imperial admission tutor decided that he wouldn't consider us at all because, firstly, he thought you wouldn't do well enough in 1 year. Secondly, uh, he just didn't support this idea of skipping a year.
Right.
However, after I got A levels, I eventually know the guy. It's called John Roberts.
Mhm.
Because when I became a lecturer, he was my colleague. So
Yeah.
I did ask him, I said, John, why didn't you even consider us, not even interview us? He said, well, I didn't believe that you, because don't forget, we just got our O level
Mhm.
and we have to apply in October.
Mhm.
And this is almost result came out and we applied. So he just said no. But once I got O level, A level results, my twin brother and I knocked on the door, and by then UCL have accepted us, made us an offer, and we accepted it. And Imperial said we will accept you provided that UCL release you
Yeah.
from the obligation.
Mhm.
So we went to UCL and begged for a letter, and they said yes. So as a result, we accidentally stumbled into Imperial.
That's quite an amazing story because one, you took your A levels a couple years early, yeah, and you then took it, and it,
Just 1 year. I was 17 when I came in. Yeah.
so you were younger than
Skipped
the
2 years. I skipped 1 year O level and 1 year A level, basically. Yeah.
fantastic. So it's interesting because based off, if you think about it in a meritocracy, you'd say that on merit, in terms of what you had achieved, in terms of being able to have skipped a year and still attained the levels which would get you in, but yet on other grounds they were saying, no, you're not ready to come in, you know, which is a bit strange.
Well, I think it is quite common in those days. I think at the time,
Mhm,
uh, we were rebellious and breaking rules. The boarding school I attended wasn't that, so we are able to break the rules they have. Some of the teacher at the school were objecting to it,
mhm,
but nevertheless, it proved that we could cope with the course. We were told that the school wouldn't offer us any extra help, but we didn't need extra help. We got the grade and we got in, and so that wasn't a problem.
mhm,
And it's never a problem. I think it taught us at the time that to be quite resilient, and uh, we should try our best to achieve our goal.
mhm,
This is my twin brother and I,
mhm.
even if we stumble across some difficulties. Yeah. I have never been resentful that Imperial never give us an offer. I can understand why they didn't,
Yeah, yeah.
but I'm glad that in spite of that, I managed to get in.
The other thing which kind of like you alluded to there was that, you and your twin brother, so you weren't by yourself, even though the two of you were in the UK by yourselves, you had each other. Yeah.
Oh, yes, that helped a lot.
And that level of support that the two of you were able, was there competition between you, or was it always just, come on, let's
There's always competition between siblings, right? But the competition, like life, everything has two sides, and they are always, in some sense, both supportive and competitive. But I think we are much more together than competing.
Mhm.
Yeah, and indeed, my having a twin brother meant I learned very young at very young age to relate to another individual. And we always find it quite easy working in a team and a group and so on.
Mm.
And while there's competition, I mean, even now at university, there's competition. Your peers as a student are your competitor as well as your colleagues
Yeah.
and peers. As a member of staff, you're competing in some sense and you're not. Yeah. So it's always like that. So I have companion that's brilliant.
So
And it was great. I mean, being identical twins, we didn't need to seek attention, always get attention because people find it very amusing. They couldn't tell us apart,
yeah.
etc., etc. And then they always teased us and we play games and so
So
on others.
I was gonna ask if you kind of like pretended to be your brother and your brother pretended to be
We
you.
don't have to. People mix us up all the time. And for example, in the third year, in a junior common room, one of our classmates walked in one day. This is the final year.
Yeah.
And suddenly he was horrified because he then saw the two of us together and said, My goodness, there are two of you. He never knew there were two of us.
That's amazing. But your brother did the same course as you. The two of you did the same
The
course.
same course, yes, identical course. We, in fact, when we graduate in the final year, our professional institution used to be called IEE, Institute of Electrical Engineers, and they offer a prize. In fact, we shared a prize.
Okay.
We were something like 1% away from each other in the final result.
Wow.
So the department wrote to the institution and said, we have this peculiar situation where two identical twins are very close in their result. We would like you to change a rule to allow us offer a prize to both of them together, and they split the money.
Okay, that's
And,
amazing.
and the institution, it's the first time IEE did it, and they agreed. They saw that is sensible.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Excellent. So having you mentioned earlier on that you've been at Imperial for 46 years as an employee, and then you were here for 3 years as a student, etc.
No,
Right?
6 years as student, undergraduate, and PhD
Undergraduate
students.
PhD. Yeah, that's right. Sorry. So
And also, I have spent 3 years outside in industry,
yeah,
which is very important.
yeah.
So,
So tell me, when you made that transition kind of like out and then back in, what was it about um when you left the institution, when you left Imperial and you were working, what skills did you gain, or what was it that kind of like drew you back to coming into
okay,
Imperial?
yeah, that's a very interesting question. Firstly, I think in those days, it was not uncommon for people after getting their first degree to work outside for a bit before coming back to do a PhD.
Mhm.
Because in those days, um, academia is less competitive than now. Nowadays, most of our hiring are people who do PhD straight off, do a few years postdoc before they get a lectureship. By the time they get a lectureship, they're early 30s,
Mhm.
never worked in industry.
Mhm.
I think it's a great pity.
Mhm.
My 3 years at Hewlett Packard, where I worked,
Mhm.
taught me to be a real engineer. What I mean by that is the following. While academia engineering is very analytical, very much to do with publication and new ideas, industry is about turning those ideas into actual products
Mhm.
and learn that real engineering skills, learn about what it's like working for a place where if you don't perform, you're out. And my 3 years as an design engineering in R&D lab at Hewlett Packard in those days was wonderful.
Mhm.
I learned how to design and build products that can be made and they are of the right price, right performance. Whenever there are issues, they have to be resolved. They can't be swept under the carpet.
Mhm.
Now, and the company was wonderful. I love it there. Why did I return? There is a problem with working as an engineer. Firstly, I can't see myself doing that for the rest of my life. Secondly, every time I find something interesting and design something and solve a problem, I would like to go a bit deeper, but I can't.
Mhm.
The company will require me to move on to a different project and do and solve the next problem. So I found that a little bit frustrating that there are so much I didn't know. There are some new ideas that come out, not necessarily mine, but I learn about it, use it, implement something, design some circuits, and then I have to move on. I can't go further with it. And that frustrates me a little bit.
So
So I decided to go back.
so was it was would you say that it was the kind of like the lack of autonomy, that lack of being able to pursue and continue on a project beyond just solving one problem? Was that curiosity to know, can I go
Yeah,
deep?
it's partly that. It's partly that. I it's less of an autonomy. I fully understood if somebody is paying you as an engineer, you have to deliver for the company.
Yeah.
Uh, but I can't see myself doing that forever. And I realized that I would have to move to management, then I will miss all the technical stuff, or I have to move into marketing, and then I didn't particularly want to do that. But there was a lot of issue that I was considering before I decide coming back. And my twin brother, on the other hand, stay on to do PhD right away, and he was enjoying it, and so on. There are many factors. And also, I missed London. I was in Edinburgh,
Okay.
which isn't exactly out in the States.
Yeah.
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 But even compared with London,
Yeah.
I thought London is far more exciting. So
So just I'm loving the fact that you missed London when you're up in Edinburgh. But aside from that, when you said at that stage, after you had your degree and you had gone to Hewlett Packard, what was your brother doing at that same time? Did he make a similar transition, or did he
no,
stay?
he stayed on to at Imperial in electrical engineering to do PhD right away. Stay he did not leave.
Yeah, right. So he stayed, you went, and then you came back.
Yes. Yes.
Right, right, right. So with that then, was your brother saying, was it also kind of like having the visual of the kind of like pursuit and energy that your brother was bringing that also kind of like helped you to think, you know what, I want to go back and do that as well.
Yes, of course. Of course. This experience actually helped.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So having then done your kind of like stint in industry where, as you said, it was learning the trade of engineering and then coming back now to do a PhD, right? Did you have a new kind of motivation or what did you think now of coming back into the imperial environment?
It was all enjoyable. I mean, it's being in electrical engineering was a delight, and also bringing my engineering skill back was good. And the one very useful thing was the fact that I worked as a yeah, meant when I returned as a postgraduate student,
Mhm,
I was really good and helpful in the labs. I was able to solve students' problems.
mhm, mhm.
And that is partially why I very quickly got a lectureship.
Right.
Yeah. Because I got a lectureship because I was, by the time I was ready to get a lectureship,
Mm,
and by then I was already quite well known in the department as a very good laboratory demonstrators.
yeah, yeah,
And that is partly thanks to the industrial experience.
yeah.
I regret that our current academia culture, both in US and UK,
Mm,
but even in Europe now, gradually, is such that even in engineering, the majority of academics never set foot in industry.
mm,
And that is a pity. If you go back 30 years,
mhm,
and if you want to become a professor in Germany, it's no longer applicable.
mhm,
You have to have worked in industry.
mhm.
That is their requirement. But now, most of the young appointees have never worked in industry.
So-
And it's not their fault.
yeah.
It's just the system doesn't really allow that.
So what give me a sense of, I understand the point, but just to kind of like illustrate it to the listeners, why is it that you feel that it's so important that there should be that industrial experience, as it were?
And of course, I'm only applying this to engineering, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
And engineering ultimately is not just an academic subject. It's not doing philosophy. It's not doing classics. It's not doing theoretical physics.
Mhm,
Engineering is always about uh, creating something using known knowledge or extending existing knowledge so that you have an end result that benefit the company and society. It's always like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a limitation on what university would do. We don't need to produce. We might in laboratory do a prototype, but we don't ever in university have to make thousands of units or millions and make sure that they do work.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to worry about whether unit costs result in the company making a loss or making a profit. Industry do that. Time scale is the deadline in industry is real. Deadline at university, oh, I missed the deadline for this conference. Oh, the next one is just 3 months away. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
So there are aspects of academia and aspect of industry that they do not intersect. Now, if you want to train, the majority of our students go into industry. They don't stay in university. If you want to train students, having that exposure, I believe, would be very valuable. Now, I don't have any solution because the requirement to get a lectureship in engineering at Imperial is so high that generally people have to spend a year doing undergraduate, PhD, postdoc, publish lots of paper, then they stand a chance. They haven't got an opportunity to actually spend time working in industry. Those who work in industry are limited in what they can publish, and often they don't have the credential to get an academic position anymore.
So there's a number of factors that you're highlighting there about how times have changed, the change in the requirements and the change in the pace, which necessitates that you can't necessarily have both aspects as you previously could. So
Yes.
I'm going to ask, leading on to that kind of like that change in landscape. How would you say that in your time here at Imperial, what things would you say have changed? Because you've held multiple roles at Imperial and within. So how has that changed, and how have you adapted and developed throughout that period?
Yeah. Well, maybe I should explain my multiple role. I joined 1 year as a research assistant in 1979 and became a lecturer in 1980.
Mhm.
And I worked all my way up from being a lecturer to a professor in two.
Mhm.
Then I became head of electrical engineering
Mhm.
in 2008. In 2010, I was also vice dean for education in Faculty of Engineering. And eventually, I stepped down
Mhm.
as vice dean in 2017
Mhm.
and retired. And then hired back by Imperial College. And a year later, in 2019, I was asked to become head of design and engineering. So yes, I've held various roles. Now, I knew every single rector or president since Lord Penny.
Mhm.
This is Lord Penny was rector of Imperial in late 1960 and early 70s.
Mhm.
And there are things that have changed. Number one, I'm very glad to say in academic department, the culture hasn't changed. We are still very, very, at least I can speak for Faculty of Engineering or the engineering departments, we're still taking education and research very seriously. The teacher in the department is always deliver the best education and produce the best research. The relationship between colleagues hasn't changed. Generally speaking, we are collegiate instead of fighting each other and rivalry between faction and so on. Generally, we don't have that. college-wide, I've seen explosion of central administration. That has been true. Now, that is not necessarily college fault. Nowadays, there are many more procedure, form filling, many steps. I remember one of our earlier college appointment, this is in the 60s now, the head of department just wrote a letter say, well, your starting day is so and so in October. So head of department could make an offer
Yeah.
to a lecturer with stating what the salary would be and what the starting date is, and that's it. And of course, nowadays, there are many more steps that have to go through, and I can fully understand that. For many good reasons, they are the case. As a result, the number of non-academically related employees exploded a lot.
Right. Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, my early days, academic would stay for a long time, as is now. At Imperial, academic staff, this is lecturer and above, or now teaching fellow, generally they stay for a long time. Administrator in my early career stay for a long time. Now, the mobility of the administration staff is much higher, the fluidity. Yeah. And there are reasons for that. Let me explain. In the old days, this is in the 70s, there was no league table. And therefore, in UK, you've got Russell Group University, you've got Red Brick University, you've got Polytechnic.
Yeah.
And Imperial is well known for some subject, but most of the university is seen as pretty good. Yeah. So there is no this ranking.
Yeah.
It's like in Germany, all universities pretty good. Nowadays, it's different. The Imperial's rising ranking, I would argue, is one of the reasons why people administration moves around a lot more, because they get offer opportunity from other lower ranking universities. Say, "Woo, we've got somebody with experience at Imperial." So there are opportunity being created, and they move a lot more. Whereas in the old days, that degree of loyalty and staying with one place is a commonplace, but now it's less so.
So not about, it's partly about the security which existed for you when you were starting out compared to the level of security in the roles which will help to propel individuals up the career structure now.
I don't think Imperial is very secure, right? And nowadays, you know that 40+% of universities in UK are trying to reduce their headcount. Imperial is I don't never felt there is insecurity. I'm talking about opportunity. Yeah. Opportunity for non-academic, both academic and non-academics. Academic at Imperial have a lot of opportunity, but they choose not to go. Why? Imperial has the uniqueness alongside the top few universities like Oxbridge, UCL, and so on, where the students are wonderful. We manage to recruit very good students, very good colleagues. It's generally a well-funded university, and there is very good job security. So as a result, I never found that there's any issue security for me, nor for most people. Administration staff, support staff, PTO staff, etc. However, because of the rise in the ranking of Imperial, because it's in London, there are many other institutions, I discover people move a lot more because they get offered higher pay, higher position, more responsibility. So people in administration move around a lot more.
Yeah. So, okay.
Not to do with security. We have really good security, I think.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. I was thinking when I was mentioning about security, I was probably thinking about the fact that people move around more. There has to be underlying reasons why that takes place, and I think you've articulated some of those reasons why that happens. Um, but in terms, I suppose also in thinking about times are changing, what are some of the major changes that you've seen happen at Imperial since you've been here? And I know we're spanning back half a century, so there's I know there's been how many rectors and presidents and senior leaders have you seen come through, and what
About nine.
about
Penny, Penny Flower, Lord Flower, uh, who else after Flower? Eric Ashe,
okay,
Richard Sykes, uh, Richard Sykes, Roy Anderson, Keith O'Neill, Alaskars, and Hugh Brady. Eight.
eight. Eight. So each
Yes.
one coming in with their different ideas.
Oh, Oxford, Ron Oxford, forgotten. Nine. I've
Okay.
forgotten Ron Oxford, my favorite.
So in that time, nine different rectors, nine different approaches to how they can keep Imperial or elevate the position of Imperial either on a national or international standing. So in that all of that time, right? When we're thinking about sense of belonging from people from different communities, etc., aside from the fact about the academic abilities, etc., that people have, what changes have we seen in the population of Imperial, etc.? If you see
Well,
what,
for a start, it is
yeah.
true. The When I first joined Imperial as a student,
Hmm.
the non-white population, that is uh, homegrown Caucasian population in both staff and student
Hmm.
was dominant.
Hmm.
So I was the first lecturer of Chinese origin ever hired by electrical engineering.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic.
And historically, no, we have plenty.
Hmm.
Historically, and I'm still the only head of department in electrical engineering in spite of its 100-year history.
Hmm.
But who is Chinese?
Hmm.
Now, the also over time, the mix of nationality among both staff and students, especially both undergraduate and postgraduate students,
Hmm.
gradually moved towards non-white Caucasian.
Hmm.
Yeah, even home student, a lot of them are now second generation immigrant. That is true. Now, this is true not only from Imperial's point of view. If you walk to, I'm very familiar with Berkeley, where I spent my sabbatical some years ago, and you'll find that is true in United States as well. Not true in Germany, but
Right.
it's true in United States as well. So it's not unique in UK.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a major change.
Hmm.
Another very important change is this. When I first started, there was Faculty of Science. They're not called faculty. That was Royal College of Science, Royal School of Mines, and City and Guild College.
Hmm.
There were no business school. There were no medicine.
Hmm.
And expanding this out to business school, particularly in medicine, is crucial for Imperial's rise.
Hmm.
We were a niche science and engineering and mining places.
Yeah.
And now we are a university that focus on STEM B subject.
Yeah.
So we expanded the perspective.
Yeah.
Finally, I think the one good thing of Imperial is we look outside imperial more now. Our perspective is less introspective, less navel gazing,
Hmm.
more asking the question, how do we make impact in the world?
Hmm.
And those are good things.
Hmm. Hmm. So you're saying over this time, then what you've seen is almost like a not recreation, but you've seen the addition of of additional faculties or additional departments which have broadened the offering which Imperial has, which has made it more attractive because it's now not such a niche environment for anyone who would potentially want to come here. Yeah.
Well, yes, but also more than that.
Hmm.
During Ron Oxborough's time,
Hmm.
Ron Oxborough once addressed all of Imperial College staff in one of the meetings. Not all, people will turn up, but it's an open meeting.
Hmm.
If Ron Oxborough rightly analyzed this, for those people who don't know Ron Oxborough, he was one of the former rector who previously was chief scientist to Ministry of Defense. So he knows about the landscape, defense landscape.
Yeah.
He said to the imperial staff, previous half century since the Second World War,
Hmm.
what drove Imperial College is defense. Nuclear physics, guided missile,
Hmm.
airplane design, all that.
Hmm.
That was the period when the Soviet Union collapsed. And therefore, he was saying that he believes the next half century, what was going to drive Imperial would be two main things. One, digital technology. Two, health, medicine.
Hmm.
And that's why he was instrumental to expanding the faculty of medicine. And he said, we need to make the scientist and the engineer work with the medics because in the next 50 years, healthcare is going to dominate.
Mm. How
The
right.
other thing he said is the other thing is IT and technology, digital technology is going to. That was in the 80s, during the 80s
Hmm.
and early 90s when he was rector. So that was a perspective, which is indicative of how Imperial should think in leadership.
Yeah.
That is, you look further and say strategically what is important,
Yeah.
which area is going to be important for Imperial to concentrate. And it is true. Historically, Lord Penny and Lord Flower work on six. Previously, you know history about TSAT. I mean, TSAT during Second World War was very active in taking our nuclear secret to the United States and so on. Imperial has always been very active in nuclear physics and yeah. And Ron Oxborough said we have to actually move outside that scope. Medicine is something that we don't have, and we need to have it.
Hmm.
And it's very interesting. I mean, I remember clearly he enunciated, verbalized this, and told all of us about what he thinks. And of course, he can't do it alone. He has to have other colleagues or the people at Imperial buying into that idea and actually make it happen.
That as someone put in the chat, wow, visionary. I the fact that he was able to kind of like 30 years ago stop and say, actually, we need to pivot and change to see what's actually happening around the world and to incorporate,
Absolutely.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Ron
keep.
Oxford is amazing Yeah.
Strategic vision. Absolutely. Now, I'm just because you've been here, you must have seen the dynamics. This is like a history lesson for me, I'm afraid, if you don't mind, because it's hearing about and understanding the process of us getting to where we are now and seeing from the perspective of the organizational structure. That's one element. But also now in the way you spoke about at when the when you started, it was mainly white Caucasians who were the dominant group um, in the college. How has the student population and the staffing population also changed? Because you also mentioned the fact that you were the first um, Chinese lecturer
Academic
to be hired
in electrical engineering.
in
Yeah.
electrical engineering. So how has all of that changed? How have you seen that pace of change over?
It's changed a lot. It's changed a lot. Now in electrical engineering, I'm one of one, two, three, four, five, six or seven academics. Seven academics are Chinese, including myself.
Yeah, fantastic.
Out of
Yeah. So you make up
yeah, so it's changed a lot.
yeah, you make up from being the only one, you've become kind of like a mainstay because that's like 10-15%. If you said it was out of about 50 staff members, there was about nine of you.
Yeah,
That's about
50% now.
yeah, over fit. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a real massive improvement. But
Yeah,
no, go on.
I did not have a role to increase this personally.
Yeah.
It's just that there are several factors. There are higher number of PhD student graduate and researchers who are Chinese origin now, and their pipeline is much fuller. Secondly, the culture itself in the interviewing process and many other things encourage more of this from happening at Imperial.
Mhm,
So I don't think when I was appointed
mhm,
as a lecturer, it's very weird. I don't think in those days there was much advertisement,
mhm.
and I didn't even apply.
Okay.
There was advertisement, but I never saw it.
Yeah.
And the government asked few university include Imperial, to hire somebody who understand and can teach and do research in a new technology called processors.
I missed that
I
last.
happen to be one of the few people who knows about microprocessor because I work in Hewlett Packard.
Right.
And so they were interviewing people. I don't know who they are, never met them,
Mhm,
and they didn't like any of them.
mhm.
And then somebody mentioned that, oh, what about Peter Cheung? So my name was mentioned.
Yeah.
And I was thankful that I was quite active in the department in helping out in laboratory and so on.
Mhm.
So my name was mentioned, and the head of department came. And now it never happened, right? It can't happen.
Yeah.
Came and knocked, tapped me in the shoulder and said, "Would you like to be considered for a lectureship?" And I said, "I didn't even know there's one going." And between and then he said, "Tomorrow, come to this room, bring a type CD. You have to type it on a real typewriter, and we'll give you an interview."
Yeah.
So between I know there's a lectureship going to me being appointed was less than 24 hours. Now it would never happen now.
It wouldn't.
I It wasn't before because I was Chinese or non-Chinese.
Yeah.
It was purely because I knew I was one of the few people who know about this new technology.
Mhm,
I happens to be known in the department,
mhm,
and they have an opportunity. They need to hire
mhm.
this new lecturer, because the government said Imperial and few other universities must do so and gave us money to
Mhm.
do so.
Mhm.
And I got hired because of that. Now, after I got hired, it was a long time before we hired an other minority as a lecturer. And there were no discrimination whatsoever. The
Mhm.
whole process was they were shortlisted, but very often a very good candidate come and their English was very poor and they couldn't present. And I was very lucky. My training at Imperial gave me very good communication skills.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think nowadays there are much more non-white Caucasians and much more diverse
Mhm.
appointment because the field, the pipeline is better, the skill level, example in communication and so on, are better than
Mhm.
before.
Yeah. I'm just where I can see we've got about 5 or 6 minutes left, right? But I really that point which you just made about the hiring process, or kind of like it it kind of like brought us almost full circle to your Imperial experience in terms of the fact at that point, anyhow, that your skill set in for you getting into Imperial, you had to demonstrate your skill set to say, actually, myself and my brother, we can cope in this environment. Yeah, right. And we've got the grades to prove it. Then in getting the lectureship, right, having come back and done your PhD, in getting your lectureship, it was because of the skill set that you had acquired when you were at Hewlett Packard that enabled you to then get that, because you didn't even know that there was a lectureship going. And that's the thing.
No.
You had the skill.
And I'm thankful that more than skill set, somebody mentioned my name.
Yeah,
I'm thankful
yeah,
that my name get mentioned because I was actively engaging in the university, in the department.
yeah,
So people, other staff know, although I'm just a humble research associate,
yeah,
somebody mentioned, oh, what about Peter Cheung?
yeah,
So my name was mentioned by somebody on the panel, and the head of department said, oh, yes, I didn't think about that, and asked me to go for an interview.
yeah.
Now, this is unusual because I think I was lucky to be in the right place at the right time.
Hmm. Hmm. With the
A
right,
few years later, I didn't get it.
yeah,
Lots of people know the technology.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But you've used that to your advantage because, as you said, you've been the head of head of department for two different departments. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh, and I suppose then moving from, I'm just looking at this journey that you've been on, this transition that you've been on, coming in as a 17-year-old, right? Then doing your degree, you and your brother making sure that people didn't know who was who, right? And then finally coming to the stage where people know exactly this is Peter Cheung. We need to put him as a lecturer because he's got the skill set. Going right the way up through the ranks to becoming the first professor, the first. So all along, you've been the one who has been pioneering, being the first to become a lecturer. The first. Were you the first professor as well?
in electrical engineering, yes,
Yeah,
definitely. I don't know about other departments. Yes,
yeah. Okay. So
first Chinese professor here in this
yeah.
department. But but Wayne, you are just saying that I'm old. I mean, I happen to be the first because I've been here for long.
But you know what? That comes with wisdom. That's what I'm saying, right? So, but in that sense, but it's not that just saying that you're old, not at all. It's because you were able to, as you as you've kind of like highlighted, that people recognized you for the skills that you had. And it wasn't just
Yes,
technical skills,
yes.
it was just skills.
It's amazing. I am very grateful to Imperial College. I was given opportunities.
Hmm.
Colleagues recognize where I could contribute
Hmm.
and give me, my senior gave me opportunity to contribute.
Hmm.
I mean, that is very important. And for that, at Imperial, it was, at least in the department I work with, I never encounter anyone who, when I have a good idea, would knock it down.
Mhm.
That is, I felt very much people will listen to good idea. We may debate different ideas, but generally speaking, is a good open culture
Mhm.
that I've experienced.
Mhm.
And everywhere you go, there will be people you get on with, you don't get on with, you agree or disagree. It doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
Ultimately, I was very fortunate
Mhm.
to be in a position where I was given the chance to do certain things.
Mhm.
Yeah. Given a chance to contribute is very important. If
That's right.
you're not given a chance, then you can't do anything,
Yeah.
right?
I like that. I like that in terms of given the chance, but actually you made the most of the chances that you were given. You didn't
Yes, I try to whatever opportunity I have, I try to do well in it
yeah,
and 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 make a contribution, make good use of that
opportunity.
and to have impact. I think
Yeah.
having impact is very important. I mean,
Um,
I hate to do things just running things or doing things. I
yeah.
like to have impact.
But I want to just ask one final kind of question because I'm really am wary that we are kind of like on the edge of time. Um,
Yeah,
in terms of the fact that you gained that sense of belonging, having been here this long, but in the different roles which you have undertaken, must have created a sense of belonging for others as well.
I
Yeah.
hope so.
No,
So,
yeah.
I think I can only speak as an academic. I mean, I cannot pretend I appreciate the administration side of things as much as people who work in it.
Mhm.
University, Imperial, and others
Mhm.
is about people.
Mhm.
We are building a community of scholars among academic and among students.
Mhm.
And the two operative words is firstly community, the secondly is scholars, where university is about scholarship, either propagating scholarship in terms of education or extending scholarship in terms of state of the art
Mhm.
research and so on.
Mhm.
So we have to be doing scholarship, otherwise we shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
The second thing is community. That is all about the interaction between people, between student and professors, between fellow colleagues. And building a community of scholars with integrity, with creativity, with impact is what makes a university successful. If a university fail to do that, then they are in a downhill spiral. And I'm glad to say Imperial seems to be doing well in that respect.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that, the community of scholars. So I'm going to ask really now, these are my final two questions. They're opposite ends of the same question, really. And they are, this is one of those interviews which you don't want to stop because I'm learning so much with every time we interact. But the question that I was going to ask, or the two questions are, what advice would you have given to your younger self? Right? That would be the first question. And the second part would be, what do you think your younger self would look at you now and say, wow?
Okay, my advice to younger self is don't give up. Just go. In everybody's life, there are ups and downs. On mine, it's more ups than or down, but there are downs. But don't give up. Don't go. Keep going
Mhm.
and try to do your best all the time.
Mhm.
I think my younger self would be surprised. I never, when I was 27, first became a lecturer. I never even at that time thought that I would become a professor.
Mhm.
One of my colleagues said to me that you and I will never be a professor because we're too interested in teaching, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was his words to me. And never in my wildest dream that I will become head of electrical engineering where I spent most of my career,
Mhm.
and let alone becoming head of two departments.
Mm.
So those are my younger self would say, well, I didn't expect that.
Absolutely. You've been a brilliant guest. And you know what? I really could do a part two because there's so many other things which you've mentioned about being head of department and about um your passion for teaching, and how that has influenced, and I know it's influenced many generations of young scholars who have passed through your hands and who have passed through your lecture theatre. So I want to just say a really big thank you for being our guest today.
Oh,
Because
thank you for asking me.
no, it really has been my pleasure, you know. Um,
Okay.
so what I'm going to just do before we sign off is just to let people know what we're going to be doing or who our guest is for next week, and they are actually sorry, who are we? Where is it from? And our guest for next week is Gardy J. Gitaru, who is, I probably pronounced his surname wrong, but apologies. He's a social justice trainer and consultant, and he's the founder and principal of GJG Training and Consulting. And he's going to be here next week to share with us his story of belonging and how he came to be doing the things that he's doing at the moment. And just to let you know, if you have missed any of the other episodes or the other interviews that we've done, you can go to our YouTube channel, which is the tinyurl.com/belonging dash IAO. And there you'll be able to hear many of the, or I think it's 200 guests which we've had on belonging over the past few years. People, as I've said, who have shared their experiences, have been willing to share their experience, to tell us how they have gained their sense of identity and their sense of belonging. And there's so much that we can learn from sharing. So I just want to say a big thank you for everyone who's come. And for those who listen to this online, um, continue belonging, and we will see you again next week. Thanks very much.
Bye bye.